Question 956. Under the CalVet program, title to a property purchased by a veteran is held in the name of the A. Department of Veterans Affairs, B. Veteran, C. State Government, D. Federal Housing Administration. Correct answer is A. Department of Veterans Affairs. In the CalVet program, the California Department of Veterans Affairs, CalVet, actually purchases the property on behalf of the veteran. This is a distinctive feature of the CalVet program. Unlike traditional mortgage loans where the veteran obtains a loan from a bank, CalVet directly purchases the property and then enters into a land contract with the veteran, while CalVet holds legal title during the loan repayment period. The veteran has the right to occupy and enjoy the property. Upon full repayment of the loan, the veteran receives full legal title to the property. Question 957. The way in which different persons residing on someone else's property can accumulate the amount of time required to be awarded adverse possession is termed A. Avulsion, B. Tacking, C. Aggregating, D. Squatting. Correct answer is B. Tacking. Avulsion refers to the sudden removal of land by water, e.g., a river suddenly changing its course. It has no relation to adverse possession. Aggregating is a general term meaning to combine or collect, but it is not the specific legal term used in adverse possession. Squatting refers to the act of occupying property without legal right or permission. While adverse possession often begins with squatting itself is the act, not the legal principle of combining time periods. Tacking is a legal principle related to adverse possession. It allows consecutive adverse possessors to combine their individual periods of occupation. This aggregation of time helps them meet the statutory duration needed to establish a claim of adverse possession over a property. Adverse possession is a legal doctrine allows someone who occupies land for a certain period of time, usually several years, under specific conditions to acquire ownership of that land. If one person possesses the property for part of the required time period, and then another person takes possession and continues the adverse possession, the time periods can be tacked together. Example: if one person possesses the property for 3 years, and then another person possesses it for 4 years, they can tack their possession times together to potentially meet the statutory requirement for adverse possession, often 521 years depending on the jurisdiction. Tacking allows successive adverse possessors to combine their possession times to establish ownership of the property. Question 958. The income capitalization approach looks at return of an investment, referring to A. Returning to the property being appraised by the income capitalization method, B. Recapturing the initial investment, C. Giving up the initial investment, D. None of the above. Correct answer is B. Recapturing the initial investment. Income capitalization approach is a method of property valuation. This method focuses on the income-generating potential of the property. Return, in this context, refers to the expected return on investment. Investors purchase income-producing properties with the expectation of earning a return on their investment. This return comes in the form of rental income, the primary source of income. Potential for property appreciation. The property may increase in value over time. Essentially, the return in the income capitalization approach refers to the investor's goal of recapturing their initial investment and earning a profit from the property's income stream. Question 959. Elaine, George and Owen are siblings who own a home as joint tenants. George sells his share to Jerry. Jerry is now A. Tenant in common with Elaine and Owen, B. Tenant in the entirety with Elaine and Owen, C. Tenant at will with Elaine and Owen, D. Joint tenant, with the same property interest possessed by George. Correct answer is A. Tenant in common with Elaine and Owen. Key feature of joint tenancy is the right of survivorship. When one joint tenant dies, their share automatically passes to the surviving joint tenants. When a joint tenant sells their share, the right of survivorship is severed. Jerry, upon purchasing George's share, becomes a tenant in common with Elaine and Owen. With tenancy in common, 1. Each owner has an undivided interest in the entire property. 2. There is no right of survivorship. 3. If a tenant in common dies, their share passes to their heirs, not to the other co-owners. In summary, by selling his share, George broke the joint tenancy. Jerry now holds an undivided interest in the property as a tenant in common with Elaine and Owen. Question 960. A purchaser of a property paid the price agreed upon in the contract and asked the seller to convey title. The buyer has made A. Escrow, B. Tender, C. Warranty, D. Counter offer. Correct answer is B. Tender. Escrow is a neutral third party that holds funds and documents during a real estate transaction. A warranty is a guarantee or promise made by the seller regarding the condition or quality of the property. A counter offer is a response to an initial offer, proposing different terms and conditions. In real estate, a tender refers to the buyer's unconditional offer to perform their obligations under the purchase agreement. This typically involves 1. Paying the agreed-upon purchase price in full. 2. Delivering all necessary funds and documents to the seller or escrow agent. 3. Being ready to complete the transaction according to the terms of the contract. By tendering payment, the buyer is demonstrating their readiness and willingness to complete the transaction and fulfilling their contractual obligations. Question 961. The following are all alternate names for a contract of sale, except A. Purchase agreement, B. Deposit receipt, C. Notification of sale, D. Agreement of sale. Correct answer is C. Notification of sale. Purchase agreement is a common and widely used term for a contract of sale. Deposit receipt often includes the terms of the sale. The primary function of a deposit receipt is to acknowledge the receipt of an earnest money deposit from the buyer. Agreement of sale is another common term for a contract of sale, particularly in some jurisdictions. Notification of sale is not a standard term for a contract of sale. It typically refers to a document or notice informing interested parties about the sale of a property. Beyond the fundamental elements required for any contract, a typical sales agreement also includes crucial specifics. These often encompass contingency clauses, warranties, and various disclosures. Furthermore, it details provisions for escrow, title, closing procedures, deadlines, the buyer's deposit, and the broker's commission. Question 962. If in need of funds to finance its activities, a corporation would probably use which of the following methods to obtain additional equity capital? A. Borrow money from a bank, B. Sell some of its assets, C. Sell shares of its own stock, D. Acquire government bonds. Correct answer is C. Sell shares of its own stock. Borrow money from a bank creates debt, not equity. It increases the company's liabilities, not its ownership base. Sell some of its assets means liquidates existing assets. While it generates cash, it doesn't represent raising equity capital. It reduces the company's assets. Acquire government bonds is an investment of existing funds, not a method of raising equity capital. It uses cash, not generates it from equity sources. Equity capital represents ownership in a company. Selling shares of stock means selling a piece of the company to investors in exchange for capital. This increases the company's equity. Shareholders have a claim on the company's assets and profits, but they also bear the risk of potential losses. Question 963. Gold was discovered in California spurring a mass influx of gold miners called the 49ers, to the area a year later. A. 1842 at Sutter's Mill, B. 1849 at Sutter's Mill, C. 1848 at San Francisco, D. 1848 at Sutter's Mill. Correct answer is D. 1848 at Sutter's Mill. Gold was discovered at Sutter's Mill in Coloma, California, in January 1848. This discovery sparked the California Gold Rush, with the 49ers arriving in 1849. The gold rush is usually defined as having run through 1852. Eventually, the gold fields extended 400 miles through the mountains, from the Tuolumne River in the south to the Trinity River in the north. The area was named the Mother Lode and remains one of the richest deposits of gold ever discovered. Question 964. Rent is calculated as a percentage of in a percentage lease. A. Net sales of the lessee's business, B. Gross sales of the lessee's business, C. Total assets of the lessee's business, D. What other similar businesses pay in rent? Correct answer is B. Gross sales of the lessee's business. In a percentage lease, the rent is calculated as a percentage of the tenant's sales. This type of lease is most commonly used for retail businesses. The rent calculation is based on the gross sales of the lessee's business. A lessee will first pay a minimum base rent. When gross sales surpass a specified point, a lessee begins to pay a certain percent of every additional dollar in sales as additional rent. This means the rent fluctuates depending on how much revenue the business generates. This method allows the landlord to benefit directly from the tenant's success and high sales volume. While there's often a base rent component, the percentage part is tied to gross sales. Question 965. Generally, all modern building foundations are made with A. Wood sheathing, B. Reinforced concrete, C. Insulated copper, D. Drywall. Correct answer is B. Reinforced concrete. While wood is used in some construction, it's not suitable for foundations due to its susceptibility to rot, insects, and moisture damage. Copper is a good conductor of heat and electricity but is too expensive and not structurally sound enough for foundation use. Insulation is a separate component added to some foundations, not the foundation material itself. Drywall is an interior wall finishing material and has no structural properties suitable for foundations. Reinforced concrete is the standard material for modern building foundations due to its strength, durability, and resistance to water and soil pressure. The steel reinforcement, rebar, adds tensile strength to the concrete, which is strong in compression.